it's kind of maybe slightly even easier in some ways that he was a newer talent, because we're just learning all the time together and growing and growing. And yeah, there's a real family spirit with everyone, which I think helps the whole show.
I'm delighted that you're all joining us for this masterclass, The Making of Big Zoo's Big Eats. Our speakers today are series producer Alex Gilman, AP Rohan Minhas, and commissioning editor Natalie Rose. Welcome. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? So just to start off, tell me a little bit about where the idea of this show came from.
So I was sort of aware of Zoo just from listening to a fair bit of his music, and then I kind of started listening to, he hosted a show on a radio station called Radar Radio, and then he went on from that to start releasing videos through the radio station's channel on YouTube of him just kind of messing around in a kitchen. I think one of them was when he cooked for his mates, a Christmas dinner for his mates. And I just thought it was really, really funny, just very different to what you usually see when you think of a cooking show. So from there, I kind of cut a little taster of these videos which were online, and then using that video, we started pitching it to various channels.
Was that something, how did you know of Big Zoo before that? He was a relatively unknown name, certainly in mainstream TV.
Well, I guess I just heard him from his music, basically. I quite like Grime, so I listened to quite a lot of that. And he was part of a sort of Grime collective called MTP, which I listened to. Yeah, so when his kind of face popped up on YouTube, I was like, oh, that's funny. I know him through music. But yeah, it just so happened that he had a kind of massive personality to go alongside this kind of musical talent, which he obviously had as well.
And then, Natalie, how did it end up on your desk? What was the story there?
Well, Boomerang were always pitching to me. We have regular routines, and then one of the routines we had, Rohan played me this tape of Zoo on YouTube, just cooking in his kitchen. I was like, "What? Who is this guy? He's amazing! Let's do something." And so then, you know, that's really what set it off. I had never seen anybody like Zoo doing what he does. Just such a interesting dichotomy. And obviously I was excited from a music point of view because I love grime, I love music, and yeah, there was just so many things that felt really distinctive about him, you know, being a Muslim, and you know, that being such a big part of his cooking expertise as well, his love of food, the way that he narrated, and he just has a style that was just very, very, very different, you know, and perhaps that is, you know, part of him being a musician. You know, when you're a rapper and you know, you rap to camera, you talk to your audience, so all those things felt really, really different for me.
He's so natural and unproduced, and not at all like what you would expect from a cookery show. How did you then, like, what were the next steps? Was it enough to sort of did you just buy that idea, or was there some development into that?
So yeah, there was a lot of development. Sorry, Ro, go on.
Well, no, I was going to say initially, I kind of thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun if he kind of cooked for, you know, just kind of famous faces, whether that be actors, musicians, or whatever. But then when it kind of landed at Natalie's feet, I think for Dave and Natalie, it was kind of important that Zoo was meeting people that resonated with the Dave audience. So we kind of thought of this idea of why doesn't he just meet comedians? Because obviously those are going to be faces that the Dave viewer knows. So you kind of bridge that gap between Zoo, who's this kind of unknown figure, and the Dave audience. So then we kind of built that idea up and thought, why don't we make riders, so comedians riders for their gigs. So that's how that kind of moved along a bit.
Yes, it was originally called Big Zoo's Easy Riders, wasn't it? And so Ro's right, we had talked about it being broader in the first series, so musicians, actors and all that stuff, but we wanted to be quite, we wanted to aim quite carefully in the first series. So we knew that combination of Zoo and comedians would work. And obviously, you know, I've recommissioned the series, and this series, you know, it's actors, it's musicians, it's, you know, well-known people. It isn't just comics, but just in order to try to land it on Dave in a way that felt familiar but also unfamiliar. That was the way that we agreed that it would probably work best, and it did. And so now we feel really liberated to we've got all sorts of people on this series.
Oh wow, are you at any liberty to share who your new viewers are?
Well, the music specials we can. Okay, so we've got 10 more episodes coming next year, which we're filming now, but we've also finished filming 2 of our Christmas specials. So the first one is the comic special, and that we invited Rosie Jones back, Phil Wang, Ed Gamble, and Desiree Birch. And then we shot a music special, and we have JME, Julie Adenuga, AJ Tracy, and Loyal Kana. So yeah, and both of the shows are brilliant because these guys are amazing. So those will be on in December. So yeah, we're going again, and we're going big. It was so brilliantly produced by Alex and Ro and everybody. That was all we needed to really see to be convinced, A, that it could work with 2 brand new people, Hyder and Tubbsy. The alchemy and the chemistry is amazing, because it's true, because they have been friends for so long, and it felt really natural. You didn't see him with Ed Gamble, but he was amazing. And so we knew, you know, he could go up against any comedian and hold his own, because he is so inherently funny and entertaining, and he can chef. So all those elements worked. And then after that, we, you know, I just commissioned the series. So yeah.
For Ro and Alex, stylistically, how did you? It's got such a distinct tone stylistically, in terms of the script, in terms of the way you shot it. How did you develop that?
I guess it was very important to take Zoo's style from that video. Really, that is completely the basis of it, and I think it was just trying to take that on a bit more. You know, it's almost like if Zoo had a bit more time and a few more people around, how would he almost want to advance that, in a sense? Like, you know, well, I guess what we were very conscious of the whole time was this needs to feel like it's from Zoo, because it is him, and it just has to feel from him to really be that genuine. So how we looked at it at the start was, this is us coming in onto their journey, basically, and it's just led from him. So we're just there, and we're coming into their world. So, and I guess through that, that's basically how we decided to approach it. So, and then certainly in the process leading up to the pilot stuff, we got to know Zoo a bit more and chatted, and we just kind of worked out how our relationship with and just understood each other. And then I think we were just always extremely conscious, just be yourselves, guys, and we, you know, it'll work. Just be honest. And I think one of the things as well was, it's, you know, it's that warts and all. Like, there's nothing, we don't need to hide anything, because it's all great. And, you know, people like to see, it doesn't have to go right all the time, but it can go right all the time. It's just like, and if it did go right, Zoo would be like, I can't believe it's gone right. Do you know what I mean? You're just showing, like, really, have we actually just done this? And we just, so I guess, inspired by the fact his thing was so real, and like his mates are there and it's just genuine, was a case of just making him as comfortable as possible doing that. And like, how would you go and get, you know, if you were making this meal, what would you do? Well, we'd just go to the shop around the corner and just get ingredients. So let's do that. And I think in the first series, we went to probably 8 or 9 halal butchers in 10 shows, which I think might be a record for a food show. I'm not sure, but do you know what I mean? So it was kind of just, yeah, I think that was kind of our plan, to kind of, we're going into their world, and we just wanted to translate that as best we could and really link that up. And yeah, when we made that pilot, I had a really good editor with me as well, and he knew his music, and like Rose, so it was just about making sure we married those whole things together, basically, comedy, food and music, which they're certainly our favourite things. So it's nice to bring them together for that, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right, and Alex makes a really good point about the honesty as well, which is something I was so keen on. You know, when he started talking to camera, I was like, he needs to do that more, because then the viewer feels like, okay, he's talking to you, you know, and you're always on his side. And so they really captured that so well. The interviews with Hyder and Tubbs, it's like, let's rinse those. That is what is funny. And then you get to understand their relationship a lot more. And just, I think because we freed ourselves with the format so much, we can be as honest as we want to be. So Zoo can always break the fourth wall. He always, you know, talk to the director, yo, like, do you know what I mean? And then it just feels like we are not making a TV format. That was the thing for me. It was, let us make a show that breaks all the rules, but feels really honest and true, and that does these guys justice as new talent who don't have to really compromise. So that's the ethos of what we were trying to do, and it was executed so beautifully, especially the pilot, by these guys. And there wasn't really that much that we changed when we went into the series. It was just I don't know, growing the narrative and making Zoo feel as confident as possible, and that absolutely comes through. So yeah, I really do think he's been so brilliantly produced, and it's hard as well. You know, when you have new talent coming to TV they were all 24, you know, never done television before, and have an idea of, oh, you know, should we? I just think that's not the way to build a relationship with talent. You have to really trust them. If you love them and you're commissioning a show because you love what they do, then you, like Alex said, it's like we're coming into your world. So that's really what we did.
That's a great way of putting it, because especially in today's sort of industry with so much talent coming from YouTube or coming from places which aren't necessarily from TV, they're not. What makes them so good is that they don't come from TV, and I think you've done an amazing job in keeping that rawness and not trying to change this into a TV thing, even though it obviously is. But that was one of the things I was thinking. There must be so much to juggle. You've got new talent, you've got the music, you've got the food, you've got the comedy. It must. There's a lot to think about. Is it hard work on a show like this?
Well, Alex can tell you, because we don't even have a long time to cut the show or shoot the show. So Alex is quite salty. So Alex, go on.
Well, I guess so. I come from a comedy background, so most of my work has been comedy. So kind of that side with the comedy, you know, is something that I've done a lot of, but I guess my other passion has always been food. So I've always wanted to do comedy and food together. And because I actually think they do marry quite well together, in the sense that you should be having fun when you're cooking. Everyone loves food. It's so easy to talk about. There's so much comedy comes from it. So I do think they actually just go together really well. And I think, so yes, there is that, the balancing act, because the food is the theme throughout, and it's kind of, you know, even when Zoo is doing his singing in the van, it's usually about food, or so. Food will be that kind of central narrative, and so much just comes off that. But I think that's the thing, like the passion of this show, it is passionate about the food, and through that, everything else comes together, I think, is what I'd say. That's how we're always planning the show. It's like, right, this person, what does food mean to them? What do they love? What funny things has food made them do? Where have they gone to for food? So I think that I would say the whole show is focused on that, and then we find the funny, and then the music just kind of marries well with that, which is Zoo's style really helps suiting the music and lifting the pace, you know. And he will, when he's starting, just before he's cooking, he will just spit some bars to kind of get him like going or whatever. Like, I mean, when we film the cooking, that can, like, it's a really short bit in the show, you know, it's quite cut quite fast and stuff like that, but the actual recording of that is something that takes quite a lot longer, because first you've got to get all the shots, make sure it all looks good, but to get the best out of the boys, they've got to be being themselves, being idiots, arguing, bossing each other around, making those mistakes. So that's something that was definitely a challenge for us, to make sure you get the brilliant energy, which we make sure we always got to have when we're cooking. That's kind of the big thing. We all come together and that energy's all there. But yeah, it's kind of, you've got to allow for the time, otherwise you don't quite get that. So that's probably our biggest challenge, is making the cooking stand out and be so good, but and allow, even though it's not, it's maybe only about a quarter of the show, the cooking, but it takes pretty much most of a day, half the time to film. So,
well, that's one thing I wanted to ask. How do you like the? How long does it take, and how many people does it take to make a show like this? Is it a bit? You mentioned before it's not a big team and not a long schedule. What's the setup?
So there is me and Ro, who are more, we're kind of, I guess, the more editorial side, and then we have our line producer, production coordinator. But they're brilliant, and they're also we're all kind of one team, and they would still have creative input on that side and stuff. And everyone's ideas are very important, especially with the small team. But so we're kind of the nucleus that kind of work out through everything together. And then, so we'll do that. And then I guess we have to, each show is, the standard show is 2 days worth of filming. So we will, we have the cooking to get in, we've got to meet the talent, we've got to do the shopping, we've got to do an activity. So loads of those different things that we have to do to fit in the 2 days, which we schedule in and really plan that out. And then crew-wise, so we'll do all the pre-planning. We also have a series director who is amazing, and he actually did the pilot of People Just Do Nothing, and he also worked a lot with Jamie Oliver. So was a massive help, and it's great because, in a sense, this show, when we were looking at the beginning, was like, it is a bit People Just Do Nothing meets Jamie Oliver. So that way that food, so he's been across stuff like that as well. And then on the shoots, we'll always have myself, Ro, live producer, coordinator, and then we'll have a director, a DOP, a second camera, sound, camera assistant, and then obviously a home ec, which will help Zoo with the food, just a lot of the prepping with that. But then that's kind of a runner if we're lucky. But everyone, it's like a real big family, like everyone on set is really close, like Zoo and the boys, they are a pleasure to work with. I think, there's challenges with working with new talent, but what I would say is and I'm not just saying this because of this call, but Zoo really is one of the most talented people we've ever worked with. He is just so easy to work with. He's such a genuine person with so much talent that actually it's kind of maybe slightly even easier in some ways that he was a newer talent, because we're just learning all the time together and growing. And yeah, there's a real family spirit with everyone, which I think helps the whole show.
I've got loads of questions coming in about how you made the series. Regarding new talent, are you all, as a commissioner and as producers, are you kind of always on the lookout for new talent? Is it something that you are, the question here is, can you tell us more about how you find talent via YouTube or TikTok or wherever it is you find them?
I'm always looking for new talent. These guys know I'm always, the last time me and Alex were in the edit, I just wrote on a post-it, these people facing the news, like everybody who I love, on socials. So they know that that's what I love, but they're also really, really brilliant at, Ro brought Zoo to me. I didn't know about Zoo before, as much as I love Grime. So they could tell you a lot more about, I guess, sourcing.
Yeah. Where do you sort of stumble upon new talents?
I think mainly YouTube, really. I probably watch more YouTube than television, weirdly, just because it's just like in my spare time, it's just very easy to watch on your laptop. But yeah, I guess I always sort of have an eye out on social media as well, kind of on Twitter, because like you say, there is a sort of different style on social media and YouTube. It is slightly less filtered. So they feel kind of more authentic in a way. So when you kind of do present them to commissioners, it's kind of like, oh shit, who's this person? Which is obviously kind of advantageous in the TV world. But yeah, when I showed Natalie Zoo, she definitely kind of just seemed to instantly get him straight away, which was kind of great. And I think it was kind of other people had kind of agreed that he was really good and really talented, but weren't necessarily willing to take a chance on him. But I think from the offset, Natalie definitely was like, actually, it doesn't matter if he's not that well known or if he's that small. There is just something there, and we've got to make it work. So how do we do that? Which kind of is testimony to Natalie in a way.
Oh, right. But what I think that's all right. And what there's a really good point that Ro made there, which is this show has done, you know, this show has done so well for 16 to 34s on Dave. I mean, we haven't seen numbers like it, you know, so that speaks to the style of the show as well as Zoo. And you know what Rohan was saying about YouTube and the cutty paciness of that kind of content, that has influenced how we have cut this show and how we have made this show, because that is how young people engage and that is what they love. So I think there's, you know, traditionally been a bit of reticence. There's always been this demarcation, hasn't it, between like digital, online, how that's done, and then linear. But, you know, I think this show, what we really, really wanted to do is say, you know, you can do it this way. And if the show is good enough, then people will come, young people will come, and they have. So yeah, that's really testament to all of the team, Zoo, Hyder, Tubbsy, and that's just staying true, I think.
It's interesting that you say that this show felt like a little bit of a departure for Dave as well. It felt like something quite sort of really, really new and fresh for the channel. Is that something that was part of the channel's strategy at the time, or did I guess, how did Ro and Alex know that this might be something for Dave?
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. So when we had our development meetings, when we were having our routines, I was saying to them, we had Manby Food as an acquisition and it did so well for us in the schedule. So we played it everywhere, and then we didn't have it anymore. And so then the channel briefed us as commissioners and said, look, food, yes, has to feel it has to feel joyful, it has to feel rewarding, the food has to be central. But what the channel weren't really up for initially, just broadly, was cooking. Because everything we had seen on Dave was food tours. You know, Adam Richmond goes around and he tastes food and he tries food, and same with DDD and all those other shows. So that, there were so many things to overcome with this, but as soon as they saw Zoo and as soon as they saw the tape, you know, everyone was sold. So it wasn't initially the strategy, other than let us, you know, we really, really want to grow food and comedy. And now there is a strategy in place, and we want lots more zoos, not necessarily in the food space, but the top line from the channel was experimental comedy ents. Doesn't matter what, it doesn't have to necessarily be food, but let us do experimental comedy ents with new talent and see what we can do. And this has kind of broken the mold, and hopefully it's a signal to lots of talent out there, undiscovered talent as well, and talent who don't have a profile, that it actually can be done. Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I've got a comment here. Someone saying a lot of broadcasters won't take the gamble on new talent, so this is really refreshing to see. What in terms of making the show, what was the fun? What was the best part of it? What was the most fun thing?
What about you? Go on, you guys.
I mean, just being able to interview Tubbsy is probably one of my highlights of each shoot. He really is. Highlights, I mean, it does so much. Just being on the road with the boys, being together, just having fun, really. It is the most fun job, like it really is. It is, you know, it's obviously really hard work and everyone has to work really hard for it, but it sounds so cheap, but it just really is fun. We're just, you know, we are just messing around all day, every day to doing what we want to do, really. And yeah, I think that's the fun. And we get to eat so much food.
Yeah.
That is just constant. Corona's doing its best to try and stop us, but you know, we're staying safe and yeah.
Is this one of those shows where you put on a stone when you start working on it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the boys just, they eat and eat. We literally, like, sometimes we need to do a shoot first thing, and be in the morning, we're like, right, okay, right, let's be ready, right, come on, we need to get going now. And they'll be like, I'm quite hungry. I'll be like, oh my God, come on, we just need to shoot. They'll be like, but there's that Caribbean round there. And I'm like, okay, right, okay, let's go to Caribbean now, get what food you want, and we'll just film you coming out of there, and we'll say, well, that's part of the story, isn't it? Because you didn't want to start because you were hungry. So that just shows, yeah, food is...
That's, again, we're so liberated, you know, that could be a part of the narrative. It's very freeing. Yeah, I think Alex is right. I mean, I don't get to be out there all of the time, but for me, the edit is amazing. So when Zoo narrates, because obviously it has guide view and that's all great, but as soon as Zoo narrates and he puts his, it's just so brilliant. The way that he raps the pre-titles, you know, and I saw that for the first time and had literally no changes because it was so good. And these guys said he went away for a couple of hours, came back, and it was just like bang on. So that actually does speak so much to his talent. What about you, Ro? What's your favourite?
Yeah, I would agree with Alex on it is those 2-day shoots. You kind of, obviously it's very hard work, but you do almost feel, because it's a small team as well, you do almost feel like you're just kind of hanging out with a bunch of mates basically, and you're just filming it basically as you go and just reacting. Once we kind of realised and got that confidence that actually these guys are really just very funny, so we can just be liberated from the format slightly and just kind of film what we want and let's see where that goes. In a way, it just kind of, yeah, it is very fun being on set. What else? I guess after the first series, it was quite exciting seeing, you know, online and stuff with a new talent, people warm to Zoo as much as we had during the series, because he was a fresh face, which was obviously kind of a big positive from that series 1.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The tweets online were amazing. I mean, so many people saying, you know, it's the best TV show they've seen, best thing in lockdown, you know, 10 weeks of like pure vibes and cooking and lols.
On Twitter as well, the last place you expect to see that.
Exactly, the most toxic place.
Yeah. One question, obviously you guys are going into the second series now. What lessons, what are you changing from that sort of, everybody loved the first series. What did you learn from the first series that you're carrying over to this, carrying into series 2?
Growing Hyder and Tubbsy's narrative, that was really big for us, because, you know, that foil of you know, Zoo as a lead and then them having to, that always works, but how could we edge out this time and give them a little bit more, just grow their narrative. So Tubbsy, expert when it comes to spice. Okay, it's a spice man. He's got new gadgets and gizmos this time, and you know, Hyder is truly the method man, and it's just giving them, making them all feel like they have like proper purpose. And when moving it on, because people love Hyder and Tubbsy so much, they love him as much as they.
Yeah, they're my favourites.
Yeah, and they're brilliant in the Christmas specials as well. I can't wait for you to see them. So that was a big thing, I think. One of the things, anyway. What about you, Alex?
Did you find that you sort of overshoot in the first series, and when it comes to the second series, you can be much more focused on where the
I think definitely something in that being more, we can be more confident in the bits we're doing. You know, like I think the first series, you want to just make sure we've got to get everything, do you know what I mean? And actually now we know what we'll get out of the scene, a lot more so. So, and actually, you know, it is important, and we're trying, you know, to be more confident in what you're doing, and that just helps. Like, I think, you know, we just did the Christmas specials, which were 3-day shoots, which was longer for us, and they were really full on because we obviously had 4 guests each time, so it is a lot more. But I think And they were great. Obviously, that brought new challenges. But I think, yeah, definitely, we filmed the first 2 episodes, really. And certainly the last one we did felt a lot more relaxed. We feel like a lot more, right, this is where we want to be now. Let's focus on this. And it's kind of, yeah, just having that confidence. And again, like Tubbsy and Hyder have really grown as well. I think, you know, Zoo's always been brilliantly confident in a natural way, never arrogant, but just he just knows himself and he's just great with that. But you can really see Tubbsy and Hyder grow, which is really amazing. And they're really enjoying it and finding their place and their voice within it. So I think that's probably been certainly the big, I think Natalie obviously said about growing their characters and bring them in, but I guess making them feel more and more comfortable because they aren't part of the world like Zoo was in. Yes, Zoo was not very well known, but he was very much dominating in what he was doing, and he's so loads of different things, whereas they generally are just his mates, you know, that were just, so for them, that is definitely something we're really actually focused on, is developing them and making sure, they get the credit and the justice that they deserve, really. And
how are they sort of responding to that, going from being very much B characters to probably
I think, I mean, it's definitely, like, I do think Tubbsy is, he is definitely a star in the making. Like, I see him as just a much funnier Carl Pilkington now, really. He's so, he's brilliant. And I think what Hyder is growing in is realizing he knows what he's good at and he just can be himself a bit more. He doesn't, you know, and now actually one way I'm trying to get a bit more out of him is when I interview him, is actually be a bit more provocative with him behind the camera, a bit being like, you know, you are treated like just crap, aren't you, all the time, you know, and you need to stand up for yourself more, you know, and actually that's kind of helping him come out of his shell a bit more. So.
And you guys have been filming during COVID. I know that this, like, I'm so sick of COVID, so sick of talking about it, but I genuinely am really interested in knowing how you make a cookery show when you have people around sitting at tables and in that food truck together. What steps have you had to take?
Yeah, so, well, the boys are in a bubble. So
they are living and working together and not seeing anyone else.
Yeah, so they're in their bubble, and then when we film it, they can obviously be together in the van, but then obviously the crew is all safely spaced. Everyone's will be in masks, and that obviously comes a lot of challenges, especially the shopping sequences. But what we're doing now is we'll be more likely to go to a place that is closed to the public. So we'll either go before it's open at like 7 in the morning, so then the boys can go in and they can have more and then speak to people, you know, they don't need to be masked up and things like that. And then try and keep it as much outside as we can. But then obviously it's going to get cold now, but then it's again having the meals. The guests are obviously 2 meters apart from Zoo when they eat. But, you know, we obviously work with our directors and stuff, ways to kind of shoot around that so it doesn't look so bad, or, you know, because we want it to still feel natural. So it comes with its challenges, but I think, you know, like I said, the team really are just amazing, that everyone on the show. So I think we're just working at it as best we can. And I don't think so far it's really affected us, which is actually just a credit to everyone, really, because it's really impressive we managed to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, but we'll see. Hopefully not anyway.
Oh, you jinxed it now.
You know, I could be wrong, and it's, why is everyone just so far away? But no, I think there's ways in shooting from further back, so you don't see how big the gaps are and stuff like that, in ways of, you know, there's lots of different things. But yeah, it's been helped to have the boys in a bubble. We wouldn't be able to do it without that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think relatively as well, when you look at other programs, this is one of the simpler programs. I know it comes with its challenges, but one of the simpler programs to shoot in COVID, because it isn't, you know, they are naturally just all in the truck. They are in their bubble anyway. We shoot from a distance, they cook from the van, all of that stuff. So I guess it's like, you know, following protocols and making sure, you know, yeah, achievable.
Yeah.
And so far so good. Like 2 down, aren't we? Two and a
Oh,
bit down.
wow.
Yeah.
It just goes to show what you can achieve. I guess it takes quite a lot of sort of creative troubleshooting to make sure that you can just carry on as you were. And it sounds as if, luckily, sort of creative people
I
can
think,
come up with creative solutions.
Yeah, our production side have been, you know, all over that really, and have just been very good at managing that, and they're also come up with creative solutions alongside us, you know, which is just really good. And I think that is very important. I think, you know, within TV, can often feel like there is quite a gap between editorial and production, which I don't like that. It's so much better. Everyone it should overlap. We can do stuff with each other, and good ideas should be able to come from anyone. So I think that's very important for our team, is that everyone does overlap with one another, and we want everyone to do loads of different things, you know, that basically.
I've got a question. This is a question from someone in the audience. Have you got any tips on getting into this? I guess this is one of the reasons why a lot of people will be coming along here today, because they love the show and they want to work in this kind of genre. What do you look for? How do you get into this type of sort of comedy entertainment? What would you look for in a CV of someone coming out of university?
Do you want me to ask that or answer?
I guess.
I mean, to get into this, I guess, I mean, to get into comedy and food, I mean, was something I've been trying to do for 10 years, really. And honestly, like, I'd say to people, I love comedy and food. There just needs to be comedy and food shows. They're like, well, there won't, that's not going to happen. But luckily it did, and we got there. But I think, yeah, it's, you know, there's, you know, it certainly has its challenges getting into TV, and like a lot of it is just, I think if you're passionate and you're willing to be hardworking, and you know, if you just love it, I think you can get there. I think, you know, I started off on a TV show called Golden Balls with Jasper Carrot as a runner on that. Like, I just kind of was on that for quite a while. I mean, I'm good at Golden Balls, the game, if anyone remembers it now, but it certainly, I didn't want to get TV to do that, but it was brilliant and I loved it. And I just, you know, I think what I'd say is if you could just try and get in the industry in some capacity, work experience, running, you know, people are always looking to try and give new opportunities. And I think TV is really good for that. There's definitely a drive to make sure we are doing that. So I think for me, any CV that anyone that, you know, if someone sometimes gets in touch with me and says, oh, I'd really like to work in TV, I'd always say, you know, okay, great. I'd love to hear from you. If I feel that they're passionate, I would love to get, you know, it doesn't really matter what you've done or not. I think you just get that sense of person. And I think I think it has its challenges. So I think you have to be prepared to want to work really hard, really. Otherwise, I think it's a bit cruel. It is cruel in some ways. So.
The best advice I could probably give would be you've kind of, I think you have to have quite thick skin when it comes to ideas. Like, you have to be prepared to hear no quite a lot. And that's fine. And you can just, you know, you have to be able to just kind of move on sometimes. But having said that, if there's something which you really, really do believe in, I think you have to kind of have that self-belief and keep pushing it, because at the end of the day, if you think it's really good, chances are it might be really good, and someone will eventually latch onto it. Because, you know, I think it's quite easy to hear from people who are supposedly, you know, like higher up than you, oh no, that's no good. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not a good idea. It could just mean that that's not for them, because at the end of the day, ideas are just a reflection of your personality or something. Like with Natalie, I think she said that to me after the Zoo thing. She said, look, you've got to just keep believing in your ideas, because eventually someone will like it. So, and that's kind of a mixed message in a sense, but I think with those ones that you really, really, really truly believe in, it's worth pushing it. But then at the same time, you have to have a thick skin to a certain degree and just move on when it's something less
I think that's absolutely right what you say, Ro, and believing in your ideas to your question, Tanya. And there's sometimes there's a presumption that, you know, commissioners have like the all-round perfect taste and they see and know everything. And I think that's really presumptive because, you know, if you look at demos, if you look at the stuff that like a 17-year-old is watching or who they follow on Instagram, you know, then you think to yourself, well, how does a commissioner know whether that thing is going to resonate or not if they are not in that? Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of trust. And to Rose's point, it's really important that responsibility and that kind of freedom is vested in APs and producers and researchers to go off and go, look, this is really good, this is really interesting, this person is somebody who we should be talking to. You know what I mean? That's the only way that we're going to change television. And it just, you know, we don't want a monoculture of lots of things that feel the same. And we want to inspire young people and show them that actually they can get into television doing what they do and doing their thing. So I think that's right. Yes, it's very rare that, you know, commissioners will take ideas, just kind of unsolicited ideas from producers or APs. So we would need to be in affiliation with a production company. Usually, that is the way that we work. So my advice would be keep going with your ideas. Look at some production companies who you like what they make. You think, oh, actually, there is some synergy there, and try and get in touch with them because you have to fight. You have to find the right. It's everything is chemistry, isn't it? But there's more than one way to skin a cat. We know that now because we live in a very digital world. So, yeah, that would be my advice. Was a producer for a really long time. I worked on loads of big formats. I started off in news, then I moved over into telly. I worked on loads of food shows initially, and then lots of empty stuff. I did a lot of, my CV is a really mixed bag of everything, and I actually wanted it to be that way. My advice is always, if you don't know where you want to end up and what specialism, then my thing is try everything. It really has shaped me. So I did lots of reality, lots of docs, all that stuff. I just finished on Gogglebox. I was just about to go on to Bake Off, and then somebody said, yo, there's a commissioning job, and I was like, so that means nothing to me. But then they were like, oh, why don't you apply? So I applied, and here I am 3.5 years later. So it's a very, very untraditional route, and I hope that encourages lots of people who are listening. I wasn't thinking about commissioning at that point at all. I was having a lovely time. So yeah, that's my journey. And Phil knows, because I've known Phil for
since we were runners, pretty much.
Yes, for so long. And then Phil was commissioning at UKTV too. So yeah, very cyclical. And now you're interviewing us for this. Brilliant.
Exactly. The synchronicity of the world is just astounding.
I know.
That's it for this session. Thank you to Ro, Alex and Nat. It's been really thoughtful and insightful, and thank you for everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining us as well. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it useful. Thank you very much.